Welcome to another Film Music Media All Access interview. I'm Kai Savas, and today I'm here with composer Cristobal Tapia de Veer. Cristobal, thank you so much for chatting today. It's so great to meet you.
Thank you. My pleasure. Nice to meet you too.
So let's just first off the bat, I want a big congratulations on your win at the 2022 ASCAP Screen Music Awards, for which you won the Composer's Choice Awards for both Television Score of the Year as well as Television Theme of the Year for your score to the White Lotus. So yeah, congratulations on that.
Thank you. That's crazy.
So, yeah, in a sea of award shows in this industry, how does it feel to be kind of, voted on by your peers and fellow composers instead of, different organizations and stuff, just kind of people that you work with?
Well, it's very moving because this last year I had lots of recognition from other composers, and so I kind of feel accepted in the gang, if you will. I mean, for me, it's special because I improvise myself as a composer. Since I was mostly doing pop music before, and I did study classical music, but I was never going to become a composer or anything like that. I was a player. So I'm happy that my peers in this business find it interesting what I'm doing for the images. And I suppose I'm helping out, telling stories and all that. So, which is the most important thing. So yeah, it's a bit shocking. I wasn't expecting, to have this kind of feedback from the composer community.
Well, I think it's well deserved, and I think the best storytellers come from different backgrounds. So let's just jump into it. I would love to know about your background. So you mentioned you kind of came into composing for visuals later. Talk about growing up and what your childhood was like, and when do you first remember kind of music entering your life?
I don't remember like a starting point for music. It was always there, and so I was born in Chile, and culturally speaking, folk music was very present, in the sense that in every house you have an island string guitar or a Spanish guitar, and somebody's going to play that, an uncle or my mom or whoever, and they would play traditional songs and stuff at parties and things like that. So that was always present. For me, I suppose, and other, I mean, me and my friends, what I remember from being there is that we weren't so much into folk music as much as American or British music, all the bands, all the pop music that would come in, and so I had this big Michael Jackson period, and then whatever heavy metal and this and that. I listened to a lot of radio, and I would do mixtapes and stuff, but traditional music, it wasn't like super cool for us. The cool stuff was on the radio, and we just wanted to do that. So besides that, I suppose I started producing maybe music in a certain way with whatever I had around, like a ghetto blaster, and then I would do instruments with whatever, with boxes, like drums out of boxes, and anything really. And finding ways to produce that, to record into a cassette, into a ghetto blaster, and then finding tricks. So for example, I don't know, a ghetto blaster, if you press the record button halfway, it would record double speed, And then when you hear that at normal speed, then everything is like half speed. So you have these big sounds, and you can do monster sounds and stuff like that. So I suppose that was good for creativity.
Yeah, I bet.
And then, I mean, later, I moved to Canada when I was 15 years old, and I went to the conservatory right away. I started classical music, and then at some point I bought, a 4-track recorder cassette, and then started producing more complex stuff with that, and so on. So it went from there. I was always interested in playing, but also producing, and finding sounds and stuff like that, experimentation. So I never thought of really making music for films or anything like that, but I was interested in the way you could tell stories with sounds. So uh, I always was a fan of cinema and things like that, but I didn't think that I could fit in there and do what I wanted to do and whatnot. So I ended up accidentally in this world,
So
if you
yeah,
want.
talk about how did you accidentally end up here? What was the point where you found your way into this world? Because I know one of your first big projects you scored was the Crimson Petal and the White. And you've done a lot of work in TV and miniseries, of course, and feature films as well. But what was kind of the gateway into this world?
Uh, I met this director from Britain, Mark Munden, who was directing that show, Crimson Petal. And I met him in Canada because he was shooting some scenes there, and he heard an album that I did, which was not music for film, but it was somehow, it had some imagery. It had a bit of an maybe Ennio Morricone Western thing going on, and so we met and everything, and he went on a leap of faith, really, just to try somebody who wasn't in this business, and then so I took that chance and tried something, and I think it went pretty well. And then the year after that project, he called me back, and he had this project called Utopia.
Yes.
And at that point, I wasn't like, it wasn't clear to me that I was going to do only that with the Crimson Petal, but Utopia somehow put me in a position where I felt like I didn't need to do anything else, in the sense that I was really doing what I wanted to do, what's more interesting to me, and it worked for the images too. So that went really well, and then from that point on, people started calling me to do stuff like that, which is stuff like that. I don't know what that means, to bring, I suppose, an original sound to projects that is not the traditional, film music sound, I suppose. So that's pretty much it. It was, I mean, I never, since I started doing this, I never thought of doing a solo album or something like that to express
Right.
stuff that I cannot do or anything like that. Everything feels really personal. The projects always feel like I'm somehow part of a band anyways, instead of having to write music for a singer. I have characters, I have the actors,
Yeah.
and it's somehow like that. And I'm experimenting a lot and doing what I want to do. So it's kind of best of all worlds, I suppose.
Yeah.
Because I can live of this. I don't have to, I'm not concerned about selling albums or being on the radio. All these concerns that I had before with in pop music and dealing with labels, which was more of an issue at the time, and having to format myself into 2.5 minutes songs and stuff like that. So to me, it's just the most interesting world, being able to tell stories, help telling stories, and the amount of power the music has. I didn't realize before, because when you watch movies, it's like one thing, but when you start working on it, I realized that you could completely make a different movie just by the choices of the music, of the sounds and everything. And a movie can feel completely different depending on the music. So, and it's really interesting. It's the most fun, really.
Well, you've been creating such amazing soundscapes, and you mentioned Utopia, but you've also scored other series like Humans, then Third Day, and of course the White Lotus, which we'll jump into in a bit. But I just wanted to kind of, on a general level, ask you, because you've worked a lot on a lot of series, and you talked about having kind of more of a canvas to work on versus a 2-minute song or a 3-minute song. So I'm curious, in your approach, you've scored also feature films as well. How do you kind of is scoring a limited series different than a series with multiple seasons? I'm curious in that fact, because I know each season is probably has an arc that you have to kind of fill up and you close, but sometimes series that continue, you have an opening for the next season, and I don't know if you're thinking about that in the future, but something like the White Lotus, which is a mini series that has a conclusion and nothing else, is it a different approach for you, or not really?
Mainly, I suppose a movie feels almost like the pilot for a season, for a series, in the sense that you need to find everything in the pilot, and the rest is you do come up with new ideas for episodes down the road, but the sound is very much defined on the first episode, and that's the hardest part. The heavy lifting happens there. So, and in a movie, once you've done that, then it's done. That's it. You don't keep coming back to things. You just develop one thing from beginning to end, and it's different. I mean, I don't know that one is better than the other. Really, it really depends on what you want to do. I mean, for me, I wouldn't do something like 10 seasons of a show. And
Right.
in fact, I haven't done, Utopia is the only show where I did the second season. I never done a second season of a show. I don't really feel the need to do that, unless it was some particular concept. But to keep going with the themes and everything, it doesn't feel that interesting to me. But more in reality, what happened in most of the shows where I didn't do the second season is that I was already on another project for the second season, and I just didn't have the time. And that's, I suppose, a quirk maybe in the way that I work, is that I still work in the same way that I used to before, in the sense that I write the music myself, and I produce everything, and it kind of feels like my project, and I don't work with other writers. I don't have assistants. I don't have people that could take over a project and do, a second season and third season and things, and that I'm just having a look at what they're doing and, directing a bit, managing, I suppose. because I need to concentrate on one thing at a time, and that means that I do a lot of I do less projects, I suppose, than most people that have teams. But for me, I don't know if I ever really gonna do that. But to me, that would take the fun out of doing this, because I don't want to be a manager. I don't want to have other composers and tell them what to do, and I don't need to do 5 projects a year.
Right.
I really don't see the point other than making lots of money, but then I wouldn't have fun. Really, I couldn't concentrate on what I'm doing and finding ideas and just having the time to do research and everything. So I had to do everything myself because I want to do it. I mean,
Yeah.
in the same way that I like to play drums, I don't want somebody else, to do that for me. If I want to have fun playing drums, then I'm going to do it. But yeah.
Well, that's an amazing take, because I know in Hollywood today, the consensus is like, you need a big music team. You have to, take the big approach and juggle all those $200 million blockbusters, and everybody, all these, studio execs are in there, and the director and the producers, and it becomes almost it's a business operation rather than, I think, and it makes sense that you want to keep it kind of focused and still a creative endeavor for you. So it's creatively rewarding. But I'm curious, in terms of your approach, when you are starting on a project, and I'm sure it'll be different for every project, but where does the first note usually come from for you? Do you like to wait for that first cut? Do you like to talk with the director or the showrunner? Do you like to, or do you just go for a walk, or you doodle on a certain instrument? Like, what's kind of the start of your creative process?
It's often with a script,
Okay.
and maybe I talk with the director or producers. More often than not, I think I always started before the images were even done. By the time I get the images, I almost have a good sense of the sound, of the general sound I'm going for, and then things might change. When I receive the images, I have to adapt. Maybe there's lots of stuff that I did that it doesn't seem to fit that well, or this and that. But as it progresses, and I find new ideas and stuff, at some point I come back to everything I did before the images, and I realize there were many important things that I found just by reading the script. And I just needed to rework that a little bit, or find another approach for that. So yeah, I would say that it's mostly the talks with the crew and the script, and about the notes, the sounds. I suppose. That's hard to say. I mean, things could come from one particular sound that has a certain spirit to it that seems to be it seems like you could develop a whole score out of one sound. But sometimes it can be a melody, just a theme. Also, lately, at least, for example, in the White Lotus, well, there's often a theme score, and I would say in the last few years, I'm getting more of my own music into the theme score. Like the people that call me, they knew my stuff before, so they were often using my own music from other shows into theirs, and so I trying to find what's exactly the important thing about that, about why they're using something from another show, because it can be pretty how can I say? So if I take the White Lotus, for example, Mike White, he was using a track that I did for Black Mirror,
Okay, yeah.
from my score for Black Mirror. And when I did that show, Black Mirror, to me, it was a completely different minding. I mean, it has absolutely nothing to do with the White Lotus.
Right.
So I'm not sure exactly what he hears in that track, for example, that fits for the White Lotus. So I had to rediscover that track through his, ears and eyes, and what's interesting about the track in this show. So, and then when I find that, then I try not to copy myself, but it's also interesting because it does happen that sometimes I do play with that. Again, in this minding that I'm kind of doing my albums at the same time that I'm helping other people with the stories. Sometimes I do bring certain elements from somewhere else, and I'm kind of connecting even things, characters to other characters or stuff like that. But it's just
Yeah.
a personal thing. It's not that nobody would realize something like that. But well, sometimes people do. But I think it's interesting in the same way that I suppose that's from the pop side of things, the pop mind, or remixing, remaking, and in hip hop, retaking a certain sample over a different beat and stuff like that. To me, that's just super interesting, as interesting as it is to quote a classical composer, for example. Like,
Yeah.
I'm a big Ennio Morricone fan, and I'm always happy when I hear he has many scores where all of a sudden you have Chopin coming out, but with a weird bass underneath, and it's just super interesting, or Beethoven and things like that. Or in jazz also, this happened often, in the 50s and 60s, quoting other stuff. So yeah, I don't see scoring much different, I suppose, than popular music at large, the way we do things. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. No, and speaking of Ennio Morricone, and it's you I think tapped into that kind of creative, like out of the box thinking for most your music is overall, but especially the White Lotus. And let's jump into the White Lotus, which is a fantastic series. And of course, you mentioned it was brilliantly written and directed by Mike White, who got his start in writing on series like Dawson's Creek, Freaks and Geeks, and went on to write Orange County, School of Rock, Nacho Libre, and a bunch of other great movies and shows. So talk about working with Mike, and what were the kind of first discussions? You mentioned he used some of your music in the temp, but I mean the score, and maybe we can start with the main titles, which kind of set the kind of the stage, this kind of jungle vocal warping and like the textures and primal and type stuff. How did you get to this point, and what did you want the music to do?
When I talked with Mike, it was pretty. It was, I suppose, abstract in the things that we talked, in the sense that we spoke about doing a Hawaiian Hitchcock, which could mean so many things, really.
I like Hawaiian Hitchcock, so that's a great.
So, but there were some points, like, for example, he didn't want like comedic music that is always
Right.
funky and happy, and stuff like that. So he needed attention. He needed some tension under the characters, to the point where you could feel like something bad is going to happen, and maybe by the end of the episode, somebody's going to die, or it's going to be a sacrifice. He would say things like that. There's some allegoric aspects, I suppose. I mean, there's lots of chaos in a way in this show. So I suppose there's a chaotic vibe about the music, that is surfacing, somehow maybe reflecting what's going on inside all these people, beyond what they're saying or doing. Yeah, the music somehow became its own character, and
Yeah, it really has. But and you talk about the tension and building. They really, I mean, throughout the whole series, it's constant kind of this building of tension, and there's always something under the surface. There's always, it's like, and almost cringing. You're kind of in your seat, just like, you're seeing this. And there's, of course, the show is making a lot of commentaries on, social commentary, there's satire, stuff like that. And these characters are played very real. So, and I think the coolest part about the series is that in an age where, TV shows are trying to shrink their main titles, you have this beautiful 70-second, opening for every episode, and you set the stage with those main titles. Was that kind of the first thing you came up with, or is that something that developed after figuring out the different sounds?
The two main things, I suppose, were the percussions, and that came out it was very spontaneous, because I didn't have much time. I mean, I think about a month after I started making the music, it was almost mix time. So
wow,
there wasn't much time, and I somehow went for one idea. I mean, I started jamming every day and recording tons of stuff, of percussion. So we do layers of big drums, and then shakers and cowbells and whatnot, and all this stuff. And at some point, I have lots of jams. And then on top of that, the other thing is the voices, I think.
Yeah, the voices. You have these amazing textures. Yeah, that is like, I don't know how you created them, but the layers and the textures, the way it shifts to sometimes doesn't sound human, but then it comes back sounding human again. It was so interesting. I mean, sorry, go continue.
I mean, it's that's my favorite thing to do with vocals in general, because I like natural sounding voices. Intimate voices, and at the same time, to make an unsettling and maybe a modern sound, and somehow a little bit otherworldly aspect. I suppose I don't use a lot. I don't use at all stuff like auto tune or things like that, where voices turn into something else, into a robotic voice, or just some weird sound. So I really like that the voices, they stay natural, but there's something that you cannot grasp it, but you feel that there's something odd about it. That is,
exactly.
How you could not sing that really just by yourself. There's something that is a bit otherworldly. So I found ways to do that, and for me, the inspiring thing about those type of voices is that they evoke many things that I think are important in the show. It seems like voices that are coming out of the jungle, or that could be fighting voices, somehow, or crying voices, and all that. And with there's this undertone of colonialism and whatnot, and abuse, and you have all these rich people going there, and you see how they behave with the locals, with natives, and all that. So I suppose there's many aspects to those voices, but I suppose the process was pretty straightforward. It's just, for me, it's just a sound that evokes that, and really fast it became clear that it just worked for the project. So then I suppose, I kind of learned about those things afterwards when it came out, and you start seeing YouTubers analyzing the music,
Yeah.
and it's really interesting because to make it is really spontaneous, and it's not it's not like calculations and stuff like that. And even when I started making interviews about that, like right after the White Lotus, I didn't even know what to say, because I didn't have the time to analyze everything and think about that. So, but then I would see somebody on a YouTube, a super virtuoso of technique and music language and stuff, and they would explain the intervals. For example, there's this diabolic interval in the voices, which hundreds of years ago you wouldn't do that, because that's like calling the devil or something, and so on, like witch music or whatever. But to me, it's more in the sense that if I'm playing something and I need a tension, some kind of tension, and then I'm going to do an interval that there's some friction in there, and that's that. And if I ended up with something like that, it's more by accident, or not by accident, but I got the intention that I wanted, but
Right.
I
Right.
wasn't trying, to do the diabolical chord or something like that. So that's more for theorians, I suppose. Is that a word? Theoretician, people that are, very, very strong in theory.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the
So,
beautiful part of music, though, is that people can take it and interpret it, and it might not be something you intended, but somebody can interpret it a certain way. And since music is, subjective, it's all, and you can have your intentions as well as a composer, and be like, well, that person definitely is not what I was trying to do, but it's interesting, I think, to see how people absorb it, and they're just, off of their experiences in life, and that's how they take it. I think that's why I love it. That's why I love analyzing things and talking and discussing, and I think that's where all the fun comes from.
yeah, absolutely.
So is there any particular scene or episode from White Lotus that became kind of like a really creatively rewarding experience, something that maybe was a challenge to do, but at the end it was very fulfilling? Is there anything that kind of stands out for you?
I don't know. I mean, once we found the tone, there wasn't really much struggle, in the sense that once I understood what was my role into the storytelling. For example, there is some source music.
Yes.
Here and there, that is like it's like spiritual music, almost like a religious aspect to it, and it's a big contrast to what I'm doing, to most of what I'm doing, because I did have to do a couple of. There were a couple of moments where I did do that too, where I had to make a music where there wasn't this constant tension and friction with the characters and everything. For example, at the end of the show, the kid Quinn is sitting on the beach and reflecting about his life and what's happening and everything. And there's moments like that where it feels like people are somehow more calm and connecting with nature, and there's less of this fight over so many things. And then in those moments, the music, I suppose, is trying to emphasize that communion, I suppose, with nature. So those are the main points that are different from the score in general. where there's um, this chaotic vibe, I suppose.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think the final series is, it's so unique, I think, to not just Mike's vision, but your vision for the music. And it just seems like it was a just creatively rewarding all around. So congratulations on that score. And of course, the ASCAP recognition for it, and the Composer's Choice recognition for it. I think it's well deserved, and I think your sound definitely, I think, stands out over the rest of the stuff that's being produced in Hollywood these days. So kind of like backing out a little bit in scope, on a personal level, why do you do this? Why do you do what you do? Why do you keep coming back to do it? What does music mean to you? And what keeps you going? Like, what brings you, what part of musical storytelling really kind of fulfills you as a human being?
The challenge of something new, I suppose, it's a big source of drive. Sometimes going into something that I'm not really sure even if I can do it. Things like that, because I don't know where I'm gonna end, but I try to approach it always in a positive way, and trying to learn, I suppose. And when I finish a new project, I always feel like I'm somewhere else that where I was before. And there's so much to learn from the people I'm working with, and discovering the characters and everything. So if there's a new approach, I mean, I always discover some new way of telling a certain story, a certain feeling, evoking a certain feeling. So I suppose that's the most inspiring thing, the more driving thing.
As we kind of wrap up a little bit, I'm just curious, some fun questions. If you could choose any other job on a film set or a TV set, behind the camera, in front of the camera, what would you pick to try for a day? Would you be a cinematographer, a writer? Would you be a stuntman? Anything that you'd be like, oh, I want to take a stab at?
That's hard to say, because without having the experience, I would feel too ignorant to say, I'd love to be a producer.
Yeah.
Maybe I would like to be a producer, but it looks like a nightmare, to be honest. I mean,
yeah, I think that.
Like, I don't feel like taking care of, all these people, all these characters and egos and that.
Yeah.
And then finding the money, or you have to find the money to produce it. And then, I mean, yeah, it's some job. But I mean, from the outside, I like the aspect of making decisions about where a character should be going, or the story, how to tell the story, finding people who give you perspectives on, for example, I don't know, finding a director that gives you a completely fresh perspective to this script that you're going around trying to find the right people for to make this movie. That looks very interesting. Editing film.
Yeah.
I like editing a lot. Just little stuff that I do. Sometimes I would post something on YouTube or whatnot, and that's always fun to edit. It's somehow we speak in general. People speak a lot about directors and maybe producers, but it seems like editors, they're really maybe misunderstood or just not well known of the mainstream.
Just underappreciated, for sure. They're you're creating something out of nothing. You're taking all the ingredients and making the meal.
Yeah, and they're really doing it. I mean, in many cases, there's some teams like Scorsese and his editor, which I don't remember her name right now, but
Thelma Schoonmaker, I think. Yeah.
yeah, which they really they made they made the director as well. I mean, Scorsese is obviously
Yeah.
a genius, but I mean, she was there, and without her, then I don't know, maybe it wouldn't have worked so well. Maybe it wouldn't
Yeah,
have
Thelma
worked
was a
at
big
all.
part of that. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's super important. So yeah, editing maybe.
Yeah, that's a good choice. So kind of final question to wrap up. What's your favorite hobbies, stuff that you like to do between working to relax, refresh creatively? Is there anything that you love to do just to kind of unwind and take your mind off things?
I like traveling a
Traveling,
lot.
yeah.
Yeah, and I even sometimes I travel with my laptop just to, um, like for example, I just went to Barcelona and I had my laptop with me, so I wanted to have a little bit of a break, but at the same time, I don't have that much time to take a vacation,
Right.
and it seemed to me like a good idea to, if I have stuff to edit, for example. um, it feels like if I'm somewhere else, seeing other people and eating differently and all of that, that informs a lot what I'm doing, and it takes me out of uh, you know. You could start freezing into a spot when you're working too long into a project, and it's always the same room, the same things, and the same people that you talk to. So that makes a huge difference, and it keeps things fresh, I suppose,
Yeah,
just to see different things. So I like traveling a lot.
absolutely. I think change of
Yeah,
scenery refreshes the mind
yeah.
and definitely for sure. Well, Cristobal, thank you so much for all your time today, for taking the time to dive into your process, for
Problem.
sharing your story about your growing up and everything. It's been so much fun and so enlightening, and thank you so much. And again, congratulations on the White Lotus and the ASCAP
Thank you.
recognition, and hope we get to do this again sometime.